Often you hear people say, oh, my compost pile, I don't want to do that because it's going to be smelly. Compost should never be smelly if we do it right. And the key to doing compost right is in layering. Browns, greens, browns, greens, browns, greens. Browns really represent carbon and greens really represent the nitrogen. And the bacteria that's going to do all the work for us need both those items of food, just like we need a variety of food, not just proteins, but proteins and carbohydrates. Once you do that layering, your compost will never ever be smelly. I start at the bottom with some woody debris just to make it easier to breathe from the bottom. And by the time my compost is ready, that will be decomposed. So now I'm going to start with a layer of greens. I harvested some cabbages and carrots. And then the key is this. The key is never ever build it up completely with greens and always leave a top layer of brown. I have some brown grass clippings available that we can sprinkle on top of here. Another resource that is very widely available and also free are leaves. So add some greens, cover it with brown. I have something else that's really useful, and quite often what I do is I literally plant it around my compost pile. Makes the compost pile look quite nice. It's covered with things growing next to it. It's a good pollinator, but it's a great compost material. It's called comfrey. This is where a garden machete will be useful, is to chop it up a little bit. So there you go. Throughout the season, I'm just going to continue doing this. I'm going to go green, brown, green, brown, green, brown. What can go into my compost and what cannot go into my compost? All of this material that come out of our garden can go into our compost. All our kitchen scraps that come from vegetables can go into my compost. Those are all greens. And browns, well, we have browns around. All the things that we think are waste are actually really good things that will go into our compost. What should not go into my compost? Meat shouldn't go into your compost. Really don't put cooked food in your compost. Don't put any fatty things in your compost. That's not a good idea. If you have plants in your garden that aren't looking that good, like our tomatoes over here, they really got really bright. Really don't put them into your compost pile, because then you may, if your compost doesn't heat up enough, then that you may get that into your compost the next time around. I'm going to cover it with my gate, and I'm going to repurpose some of the string that I get from the straw bales that we use. So at some stage my compost pile may actually be this high. That's okay, because it's gonna get smaller again. This method of compost is what I call the lazy method, because some people should tell you, oh, you must turn your compost on a regular basis, and that's true. If you turn your compost, it'll actually turn into compost a lot faster. As long as we have good layers of green and brown and green and brown, we don't have to turn. But I'm going to leave this at the end of the season. Come back next spring, this will be ready for compost. So to give you an idea what it could look like, in the permaculture garden I started compost a year ago. I left it over the winter, and this is what it looks like now. So this is beautiful stuff. This is ready to go into my garden.